Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the Steven Universe Retrospectives. Apologies that this is a day later than it normally is. As I mentioned in my updates on Twitter and on YouTube, I was not in a good mental state yesterday and I just did not feel like I would be in the right place to do the vlogs. I know they usually bring me some joy, but I was not happy, I was angry, I was bitter, I was sad. I was just not good. Just not good, and I did not want that energy to transfer to the vlog, so I decided to just decided to push this to Saturday, and likewise, the Spider-Verse vlog is going to be pushed to tomorrow, so apologies in advance if you were looking forward to it yesterday, but that's how it is, and sadly, this is not going to be the last time I do that this month, but I'll talk about that at the end of the video. But for now, we're not going to be talking about that. Instead, today we're going to be discussing episodes 103 and 104 of Steven Universe / the first episodes of Season 4, Kindergarten Kid and Know Your Fusion. And since the last few episodes have been very big, heavy stuff, today we got us a couple of breather episodes, and it starts as early as Kindergarten Kid, because in this episode the gems have gone to the beta kindergarten and are poofing and bubbling all the corrupted gems that Jasper had captured. For of course, whenever they fit, of course, dealing with a regular corrupted gem is a hassle, but the gems are able to do it. But Peridot being Peridot, she's laughing in their faces. And by there, I mean everyone's. She's laughing at the corrupted gems because she thinks, how could something like these be gems at all? Which, yeah, we learned that there are no corrupted gems on Homeworld. She's laughing at the crystal gems with all the effort they're taking to put them in, and well, she's just being an ass, which is typical Peridot. But ultimately all the crystal gems managed to poof and bubble all the corrupted gems save for one. This weird fluffy thing with multiple eyes that's a gemstone in the middle of its face, a large mouth with multiple tongues in it, and 2 legs. And sadly, this one's a bit feistier than the other ones. As the instant the gems open its cage, it just bolts right out and runs over all of them before they can even land a single hit, which causes Peridot to laugh at them and their incompetence. Of course, the crystal gems take offense to Peridot laughing in their faces, and they say, well, if you think this is so easy, why don't you do it? And so Peridot happily takes the challenge, thinking, well, she's a Peridot, she's intelligent, she can take it down. And so she goes off to start thinking of ways to get the corrupted gem, while Steven decides to go with her because he's worried. Though he does claim it's about the corrupted gem, but let's be honest, it's all about Peridot. And from there, well, let me put it this way. You know those old Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner cartoons? This is that. That is this episode. Peridot thinks the best way to catch this gem is through outthinking it, outsmarting it, setting traps, and put simply, everything goes wrong. It's just, I can't really give it justice when I try and think about it, but put simply, the whole episode is Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner shenanigans, and like in those cartoons, everything keeps blowing up in Peridot's face. She tries to drop an injector on the creature. Not only does the injector not drop, but when she tries kicking it down, she gets crushed by rubble, then the injector, before the monster goes after Steven. She tries hitting it with a cannon, which misfires and blasts her into more rubble, which causes her to again get crushed by rocks and Steven to get assaulted, until finally she just decides to just push a boulder off a cliff and crush underneath it, which results in the thing sneaking up on her and Steven, causing them to fall off the cliff, and then the monster accidentally pushes the boulder right on Peridot. It's just hilarious. It's just hilarious, and that's the whole episode. It's just amazing. And yes, there is a moral at the end of the episode, as Steven does get Peridot, as how Peridot ultimately catches the monster is by Steven telling her to empathize with it, and even giving an example about how it's in constant pain, suffering, and everywhere it goes, it treats everyone attacks it or treats it with fear, which finally gets Peridot to realize, hey, I was always on the run like that too, and allows her to get in close and finally poof the thing. But again, it's just hijinks plenty in the episode. It's just so insane and balls to the walls crazy, but I can't help but love it. But it does end with on a sweet note, as Peridot manages to bubble the gem. When Peridot catches the gem, she bubbles it, and which I think is nice. She actually created her first bubble, and she sends it off, which Steven tells Peridot that when she does that, it sends the gem home. And sure enough, it pops up in the barn. Which a nice little funny moment is we see Lapis just sitting there reading a book when the gem pops up. She just glances at it for a second before just going right back to her book. I love that. I don't know, it's just funny. But For then we get to the next episode, Know Your Fusion, and this one has Steven and Amethyst ready to wanting to show Smoky Quartz off to Garnet and Pearl. And of course, they get this whole plan set up, they realize a routine, and Garnet and Pearl are wondering, what are they doing? But Steven and Peridot end up, or no, Steven and Amethyst, I'm getting their names mixed up again. Steven and Amethyst get Garnet and Pearl into position, and, well, they fuse into Smoky Quartz, which, yeah, causes both Pearl and Garnet to freak out in their respective ways. Pearl is at a loss for words, and she's just stumbling and just kind of stuttering, going, what? While Garnet, she's just fangirling hard, and she's like, oh! I love it. I just love it. But yeah, they're just happy to see Smokey, and Smokey wanting to show off her skills, ends up summoning yo-yos and doing tricks, but since it's in the house, he ends up trashing the place, and when Pearl sees all the damage, it kind of breaks her out of her own stupor, and she manages to talk Garnet into saying, hey, I need a little help here, and thus they end up fusing into Sardonyx to try and keep Smokey under control. Of course, Smokey and Sardonyx are happy to see each other, and especially Sardonyx, as Smokey's a new fusion, so she wants to get to know her, but even Sardonyx admits, your act is good, but you need a bigger stage. And so, she says she can provide, as she goes over to the temple doors, and it turns into a curtain. Yeah, it turns out Sardonyx has her own room. In fact, what I can tell in the episode, all the fusions have rooms in the temple. It's just that their existence is causally related to the existence of their corresponding gems. So likewise, let's say, for example, Amethyst and Pearl fused into Opal, then Opal would have a room in the temple, but the instant they unfuse, the room would go away. It's likewise the same with all the other gems, and so likewise, as Sardonyx admits, her room exists as long as she exists, and so she stuffs herself in and invites Smokey inside. And so once Smokey enters, we find it. It turns out it's a talk show stage with Sardonyx as the host, and the show is called Sardonyx Tonight, and it's got everything. It's got lights, it's got a backdrop, it's got a desk, it's got a guest chair, and an imaginary audience. It's actually kind of funny. And from there, the whole episode is just Sardonyx trying to get Smokey to open up, learn more about her, go on and see what else she can do. And Smokey doesn't really have much to say, because collectively, even she admits, between the kindergarten and her fusion now, she's only really existed for 10 minutes. She doesn't really know much about herself. So while she does still keep trying to show off all the things she can do, Sardonyx keeps kind of pushing her, so to speak, and wants to see what else she has under her sleeve. And so she even ends up setting up this little obstacle course to test out her abilities, and ultimately, and this ultimately was a bad call on Sardonyx's part, she creates things that are based on the abilities of the other fusions, like Opal with her bow and arrow, Sugalite with her super strength, and even Alexandrite with her fire breath. But ultimately, Smokey doesn't really have anything to show for any of them. Excuse me a sec. Apologies, puppy stuff. But yeah, like I said, basically Smokey goes through all the obstacle stuff and doesn't really deliver on any front. So Sardonyx begins wondering, well, okay, there must be something I'm missing here. After all, like, is there something specific to Steven and Amethyst that's heightened by their fusion and so forth? She gets her answer when Smokey begins putting herself down. As she talks about how, well, I guess 0 plus 0 equals 0, how I'm just a big nothing, how I'm just a big nothing with a yo-yo, and yeah, the more she puts herself down, the more Sardonyx realizes what's going on. As she realizes what helped bring Steven and Amethyst closer together, and she starts realizing that the whole reason that they even set this up was because they wanted to impress Garnet and Pearl, and realizing that makes Sardonyx realize another big factor. She hijacked the show, and when the instant she realizes that, and that all of her efforts have actually been making Smokey feel worse about herself rather than better, she ends up falling apart, unfusing back into Garnet and Pearl. Unfortunately, this also has a negative impact on the room, as without Sardonyx, it can't exist, so it just starts falling apart. The whole room starts shaking, the set starts breaking up, and even the ground beneath them starts crumbling. So, And unfortunately, because Garnet and Pearl fell so far apart of each other, they can't fuse back into Sardonyx. So ultimately, it's up to Smokey to get the job done, as she manages to rush in and grab both Pearl and Garnet, and using her yo-yo as a grapple, she manages to get to fly right out of the room before it disappears into nothingness, which ultimately causes the group to crash back into the house, and for Smokey to unfuse back into Steven and Amethyst. Again, hold on a sec. Sorry again. But anyway, after they crash, Steven does apologize for the rough landing, but Pearl and Garnet are immediately turn up the supportiveness, as they immediately go, "That was amazing. That was amazing. I didn't know you could use that as a grapple. Grapple, that's really cool." With Pearl begins complimenting Amethyst how she thinks that she's such a good influence on Steven, though Amethyst admits it's probably the other way around. And basically the episode ends with Garnet and Pearl wanting Steven and Amethyst to give them a play-by-play of what the heck happened, and all the cool things about Smokey. So there you go. Okay, so my thoughts on both episodes. Like I said at the beginning, these feel like breather episodes, and quite honestly, it shows. Yeah, both episodes do have like character moral conundrums at the end that get resolved through all the regular mushy stuff like empathy, understanding, and family and friendship and all that jazz. But the real meat of both episodes that I think makes them fun are just the antics for both episodes. In the case of Kindergarten Kid, this is just a straight-up Looney Tunes cartoon. The antics that Steven and Peridot get into when they try to catch the fusion are just hilarious. I couldn't, even watching it for the vlog, I couldn't stop laughing. It's just perfect comedic timing. Peridot losing her patience as everything keeps going wrong, having all of her traps blow up in her face, something fierce, causing her to get crushed or hurt, and even with she doesn't poof once throughout the episode, and even Steven admits, "You don't poof easy," it's just silly, stupid fun. It's just great, and I love it. Even by the end, when Peridot does kind of embrace the whole act like a monster to get close to a thing and does manage to get close enough to try and get for its gem, she's still frustrated, like, "Give me that gem!" And she just climbs on its back, it's just resorting to try and ripping the thing out of its body. It's just pure silly fun, and I love it. And again, there is a moral with there, as Steven has Peridot get empathy for the monster, because, well, it doesn't exactly have a good lot in life, considering that it's a monster that everybody's probably afraid of. And odds are, and of course, because of that lot, of course it's going to be aggressive. Of course it's going to be aggressive. And even Steven says, "Well, remember when we were chasing you and you had everything taken away from you?" Think like that. Which, again, it's nice, but let's be honest here. The real meat of the episode, and the thing that makes us like the episode more and like the episode, is just all the crazy antics that occur in it. It's hilarious, and it's just fun. I love it. I just love it. It's just a fun episode. This is a fun little Looney Tunes cartoon set in the world of Steven Universe, and I love it. So, and for Know Your Fusion, this one has more heart to it, because again, the whole thing that starts it is Smokey trying to impress Garnet and Pearl before the show kind of gets hijacked by Sardonyx. And again, you can kind of see the emotional beats throughout the episode, because sadly, what Sardonyx is doing does not help Smokey's case, because how Sardonyx is trying to get Smokey to open up, so to speak, is by comparing her to other fusions, and ultimately therein lies the problem. Because, well, as I kind of have learned, well, compare and despair. If you try and compare yourself to other people, odds are you're not going to feel satisfied with yourself. And sadly, that's what happens when Sardonyx starts comparing Smokey to Opal or Sugalite or Alexandrite. And all of them are awesome fusions, and all of them have their own unique powers and abilities. But in terms of sheer power, well, Smokey does not come close to them. She doesn't have the aim and accuracy of Opal, which makes sense since Pearl's not involved in that. She's not as big and strong as Sugalite, which again makes sense. She's made up of two little tiny gems. Or she doesn't have Alexandrite's fire breath, which why would she? And so it makes sense. So when the more Sardonyx tries to get Smokey to open up, well, the more detrimental it gets to Smokey's own self-confidence. Because again, the thing that created Smokey in the first place was Steven and Amethyst finding commonality or finding common ground in the fact that they both feel like the worst gem, and that even if they don't feel as up to, even as they don't feel like they're what they're supposed to be, they can at least find solace in supporting one another and being there for one another, and and ultimately it's that closeness and familial bond that brought them together to finally form Smokey. But the thing is, and as a result of that, but the thing is, because of Sardonyx continually comparing Smokey to all these more powerful fusions, it makes Smokey feel inferior, and the very thing that helped create her is what ultimately brings her down. And what I like is that takes Smokey degrading herself to make Sardonyx realize, oh, I effed up here. Which, again, I at least like that. Sardonyx does not mean any harm in the episode. She's not trying to put Smokey down. And even she admits that she just got excited, or maybe Garnet got excited, because when she says that it's clear she's about to fall apart, and it's clear at this point it's not Sardonyx talking, it's Garnet and Pearl in Sardonyx's head. But basically, the reason why Sardonyx pushed as much is because she got excited. She was meeting a new gem. She wanted to know as much as she could about her. But the thing is, Smokey doesn't know a lot about herself. She's good with the yo-yo. She's got great tricks. She's an impressive fighter. She can do a lot of amazing stuff, and can do a lot of amazing stuff. But the problem is that Sardonyx was pushing in the wrong direction. She kept comparing her to other gems to try and figure out what her special powers were. But ultimately, all that really did was make Smokey feel lesser, smaller in comparison. And when Sardonyx realized that what she was doing was actually making Smokey feel even worse about herself, it made her realize, yeah, I'm in the wrong here. We screwed up here. We screwed up bad. And I like that. And when the instant that they get out of Sardonyx's room, Pearl and Garnet just decide to stop Pearl and Garnet just stopped trying to get Steven and Amethyst to say, well, what else can she do? And instead started hyping up all the stuff that they've seen already, all the stuff that they wanted to show off, the yo-yo and all the impressive things she can do with it, which, again, I like. This also showcases more stuff with Smokey and her abilities, as it showcases that the yo-yo is very versatile. It isn't just a weapon, it can be used for a variety of things. I like that. It's actually pretty impressive and cool. So, kudos. So I like that. Pretty awesome. But again, so I do at least like that. I do like that I do like how things go, and I do like Sardonyx kind of owning up, and by the end, Pearl and Garnet make things right by actually by putting the spotlight back on Steven and Amethyst, because they just wanted to show off and show something nice to their friends. I like that. And so, but again, the real meat of the episode, and the thing that still makes me call this a breather episode, despite the heavy emotions that we see at the end, it's Sardonyx and Smokey. Sardonyx is, again, a showman, and ultimately, we don't really see a lot of her, which makes sense, considering that the first time we saw her was during the start of Pearl's betrayal, I suppose I can call it. And from there, of course, Garnet probably wouldn't feel comfortable with fusing with Pearl again unless it was absolutely necessary. So we don't really get to see a lot of Sardonyx. But we don't get to really see a lot of Sardonyx proper throughout the series after that. So finally to see her again having center stage, it's fun. She's still a showman. She's still theatric. She still acts for a grand performance. And we learn that she can kind of sort of break the fourth wall, because in her room she has footage from the show that says provided by Cartoon Network at the bottom of each one. And at one point she actually, when they get to the portion that the portion of her games show that compares Smokey to Sugalite, you actually do have lines of Sugalite, which of course are just the lines that were provided by Nicki Minaj for that episode. And so Smokey just kind of looks aside and says, she's not actually in this episode. Do we still have to pay her? We do? Fair enough. I don't know. I find that amusing. I love the antics in Sardonyx's room. Like, there's just so many things that don't make sense, which again makes sense. It's a liminal space. Of course she can do whatever the hell she wants, but it's just, every time they throw something off screen, it sounds like it crashes into someone. It sounds like someone's getting hurt. It sounds like there are people cheering. At one point she says, Jorge, turn off the lights. Hey, don't listen to the art. Hey, don't focus on the crowd. Don't focus on Jorge. Focus on us, which is you and me right now. And even Smokey's just, and I love what I love is that you see Smokey just trying to wrap her head around everything. Not only is she trying to think of ways to try and make herself look more impressive to make Smokey impressed, but she's also reacting to all the weird things that are going on in Sardonyx's room. Like when the audience is in cheering, she's like, "Wow, easy crowd," and Sardonyx's like, "Yeah, I made it myself," and just Smokey just freezes for a second as she's sipping she's just sipping a cup of whatever. It's amusing, and I love seeing them both working off each other, because you got Sardonyx, who's this grand showman who has to be center stage, and then you got Smokey, who's just kind of pushed to the sidelines but still trying to make a good show as they both are just making like puns and jokes and all this stuff. Which, yes, I wince at the puns. Don't sue me, I'm not a fan of puns, but it's still amusing to see them working off of each other, and it is cool to actually see two fusions in the same room that aren't duking it out with one another. Oh, let's be honest, that was awesome too. But it's still nice to see them just being more familial, and at least to see more of what Smokey has to offer, and having her kind of going off of Sardonyx, which again, it does lead to some nice little nice heavy emotions at the end, where Sardonyx realizes what she's been doing has not been helping, when Sardonyx realizes that what she's been doing has not been helping Smokey, and by the end, when Smokey does save Garnet and Pearl, they start gushing over her and want to know everything that Steven and Amethyst want to show. So I dig it. It's nice. Overall, these are both still fun episodes. Again, Kindergarten Kid, just great Looney Tunes-esque fun, and just into some nice slapstick as Paradox has her shit get wrecked by the gem and all the various antics. And then likewise, the Know Your Fusion is a nice little episode with some good emotional depth, while also having some fun antics when you see Smokey and Sardonyx working off of each other and doing their own respective means of insanity. So overall, good episodes, and I liked them and enjoyable. So there you go. So as for the next episode of the Steven Universe Retrospectives, again, like in the past, I'm going to be going on a 1-week hiatus, as next week I'm going to be doing a vlog on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 for my MCU perspectives. But when I do come back, like with this vlog, I'm going to be doing the episode on Saturday. I'm not going to be doing this like a regular thing. It's just going to be unique for that week, because I am going to be attending my grandmother's funeral that Friday, and it honestly does not feel right to be doing this vlog on that day. So, like with this one, like with today, I'm going to be pushing the Steven Universe retrospectives to Saturday, and then likewise the Spider-Verse vlog to the Sunday after. So, I just wanted to give you a heads up for that. So, basically, if you want to tune in next week and watch Guardians of the Galaxy, I hope you enjoy. But if you're just here for Steven Universe, then I hope you have a good day, and I will see you in 2 weeks as we look at the next couple episodes. And I admit one of them is going to hurt me specifically. I'll kind of get into why when I get to it. So, till then, I hope you have a good day. I'm Samuel Johnson, and I'll see you in a couple weeks. Take care.